Why your body won't move. It's a Sunday morning. You have nowhere to be. You slept 8 hours. And getting off the sofa feels like lifting a car. Your limbs are heavy. Your body feels like it belongs to someone else. You want to move. You just can't. Most people call this laziness. Science calls it something completely different. And in this episode, you're going to understand exactly what's happening and why everything you've been told to do about it is making it worse. You're listening to Your Space Today, the podcast where we decode fatigue, stress, and burnout so you can rise again. Every Tuesday, we explore the hidden connections between your habits, your health, and your happiness, giving you the tools to take back your energy and your life. Let's start with what this actually feels like, because there's a specific kind of heaviness, and it's different from tired, different from sleepy. It's more like your body has drawn a line somewhere, and you're standing on the wrong side of it. You make the decision to move. You intend to move. And then, nothing. You sit on the edge of the bed. You look at your trainers. You think about the walk you are going to take. And somehow an hour passes. Most people in this situation blame themselves. They run the usual story. Not motivated enough, not disciplined enough, not the kind of person who just gets up and does it. That story is wrong. And I want to tell you about someone who lived this story for over a year before anyone gave her a different explanation. Nina is a 42-year-old HR manager. She's good at her job, organized, reliable, the kind of person who responds to emails on time, handles difficult conversations with staff, and never lets things visibly fall apart. But most mornings, Nina sits on the edge of her bed for 20 minutes before she can stand up. Her trainers are by the door. She put them there on purpose, a strategy she read about. Make it easier, remove the friction. The trainers are there. She can see them. She just doesn't go. From the outside, Nina looks fine. She's not depressed, not clinically. She's not exhausted in any way she can point to and explain. She's just heavy. What Nina doesn't know is that her body is doing exactly what it was designed to do, just in the wrong context. Here's the first thing to understand. What most people call laziness or low willpower, that lead in the limbs feeling, that inability to cross the gap between intention and action, is a nervous system response. Not a character flaw, not a motivation problem, a protective mechanism that evolved long before the modern working week. Your nervous system has a setting that most people have never heard of. And in a few minutes, I'll explain why the standard advice, just push through it, just start, can actually deepen the cycle rather than break it. But first, let's understand what's actually happening under the surface, because here's where this gets really interesting. Your nervous system has 3 modes. Most people know about 2 of them. There's the calm, connected mode, the one where you feel safe, engaged, present. And there's the fight or flight mode, the one most of us are far too familiar with. Heart racing, thoughts speeding up, a sense that you need to do something right now. But there's a third mode, and it's the one nobody talks about. It was first described by a neuroscientist named Stephen Porges, who spent decades mapping the autonomic nervous system in ways that completely changed how we understand stress. His framework, called the polyvagal theory, describes this third mode as a kind of shutdown state, a deep, ancient protective response that evolved long before fight or flight did. It's controlled by what's called the dorsal vagal branch of the nervous system. And here's how it works. When an organism faces a threat that is genuinely inescapable, not a threat you can fight or flee from, but one that has no exit, the nervous system makes a different calculation. Instead of spending energy trying to escape, it conserves energy. It dampens everything down. Heart rate drops, digestion slows, muscle activation decreases, the motivation circuits go quiet. In animals, we'd recognize this as playing dead. In humans, it looks a lot more like a heavy Sunday morning. Now, and this is the important part, this shutdown mode didn't evolve for office life. It evolved for actual life-threatening situations. But the nervous system doesn't know the difference between a predator and a deadline that never ends, between physical danger and the relentless pressure of a life that feels like too much. When stress is sustained, not dramatic, just never-ending, the nervous system can gradually shift its baseline toward this low-energy protective mode. Not completely, not in a way that looks like illness, just enough to make everything feel heavier than it should. Research on the long-term effects of chronic stress on the body's regulatory systems confirms this. Scientists have found that when the demand on the body's stress response systems is sustained over time, the body recalibrates, not up toward higher performance, but down toward conservation. It's an adaptive response to a world that seems to never stop asking for more. Think of it like a phone that dims its screen and disables its background apps to save battery. The phone isn't broken, it's not malfunctioning, it's in power-saving mode. And you can't force it back to full brightness by pressing harder on the screen. What you need to do is something different. Which brings me to the part of this that most productivity advice gets completely backwards. If this is true, then most advice about motivation is working on the wrong level entirely. Here's why people stay stuck. The standard response to that heavy, won't-get-going feeling is one of two things. Either push through it, use willpower, use discipline, just force yourself to start. Or rest completely. Retreat. Do nothing. Wait until you feel better. Neither of these reaches the mechanism. Pushing through adds more activation demand to a system that's already in protective mode. The nervous system registers this as more pressure, not less threat. For some people, it works briefly, then fails more dramatically the next time. For others, it simply doesn't work at all, and they walk away with more evidence that they're the problem. Passive rest doesn't work either, not for this, because lying on the sofa watching television isn't actually signaling safety to the nervous system. It's just neutral. The body doesn't receive the information it needs to shift state. This is why motivation-based solutions, the 5 a.m. routines, the inspirational content, the goal setting, so often fail for people in this state. They're mental interventions, and the obstacle here isn't mental, it's physiological. What makes this particularly hard to see is that the 4 areas of life most directly connected to energy, what you eat, how you move, how your mind handles stress, and the rhythm of your days, are all quietly compounding each other. Blood sugar crashes from an ultra-processed diet send the body toward low-energy states even before the nervous system gets involved. The absence of regular physical movement removes the single most reliable signal the body uses to know that all is well, that the organism is capable, active, safe. Chronic rumination and self-criticism keep the stress system quietly running in the background, even when the external world seems fine. And disrupted sleep, late screens, irregular hours, the blue light that suppresses melatonin, prevents the overnight nervous system recalibration that rest is supposed to provide. These connections run deeper than most people realize, and if you want to explore how they interact in your own life, there's a link to our website below. None of these are separate problems. They form a single pattern, a system that has been pushed toward conservation mode from multiple directions at once. So in a moment, I'll show you what actually moves the needle. And the good news is, it doesn't start with a 5 a.m. alarm. So the real question becomes, what does actually signal safety to a nervous system that's gone into shutdown? Let's talk about it step by step, because the answer here is genuinely different from most of what you've been told. The key shift isn't about activating motivation. Motivation is a downstream effect. It appears after the nervous system has registered safety. Trying to manufacture it before that shift happens is like trying to get your phone to run full speed while it's still in power-saving mode. The target, instead, is the nervous system state itself. What we're looking for are inputs that signal safety to the body. Not performance demands, not urgency, signals of safety. And here's where the science gets genuinely useful. The ventral vagal branch of your nervous system, the one associated with calm, connection, and engaged alertness, is specifically activated by inputs connected to the social world. The sound of a warm voice, eye contact, a sense of being seen or held in someone's awareness. Stephen Porges calls this the social engagement system, a biologically wired network that links the voice, the face, the breath, and the heart rate into a single integrated state of safety. When you activate it, even briefly, the whole system shifts. Here's the experiment I want you to try. It's called the 2-Minute Ventral Reset. And the goal isn't to warm up your muscles or boost your energy. The goal is to shift your nervous system state before you ask it to perform. Before you attempt any demanding task, before you try to exercise, before you try to work, before you try to be productive, spend 2 minutes doing one of the following. Have a brief, real conversation with someone you feel safe with. Not a text message, a voice. Even a short phone call. Something that involves the actual back and forth of human connection. Or take a slow walk outside and actually look around. Not at your phone, not down at the pavement. Let your eyes move. Let the environment enter. This gentle, panoramic visual input is one of the nervous system's oldest safety signals. Or hum softly. It sounds almost absurdly simple, but the mechanism is real and worth understanding. The vagus nerve runs through the larynx and pharynx, the structures that produce vocal sound, and humming creates vibrations that stimulate vagal fibers directly in that area. At the same time, sustaining a hum naturally prolongs the exhale, and it is specifically the extended exhalation that tips the balance from sympathetic activation toward parasympathetic calm. You are using two mechanisms at once, the vibration and the breath. Research into vocalization and autonomic regulation confirms that humming measurably increases the body's parasympathetic activity. In some studies, it produced one of the lowest stress indices measured, lower even than rest. It's one of the few things you can do that literally speaks to your nervous system in its own language. 2 minutes. That's it. What you'll likely notice over time is not a sudden surge of energy. It's something subtler. The gap between wanting to move and actually moving gets smaller. The heaviness lifts slightly before you've done anything that anyone would call exercise. Because you've changed the state, not just the intention. Nina eventually stopped trying to force herself across that invisible line every morning. She started doing something smaller, a 2-minute phone call to a friend, sometimes literally just to say hello. A slow loop around the block before she'd even thought about exercise. Some mornings, just standing at the kitchen window and actually looking at what was outside it. Her trainers are still by the door, and she still doesn't always use them. But the heaviness, that specific weight of a nervous system in shutdown, has become something she recognizes now, and something she knows how to work with. If you recognize Nina in yourself, the 2-minute ventral reset is exactly where to start. Not the motivation, not the discipline, the signal. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love it if you shared it with someone who might need to hear it too. A friend who's been running on empty. A colleague who calls themselves lazy when they're anything but. Sometimes just knowing there's a real explanation and a real way through is enough to change things. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I'll see you in the next episode, where we look at what caffeine and the brain's tiredness system are quietly doing to your energy all day long, and what the research actually says about how to use coffee without having it use you. Until then, take care of yourself. You deserve it. Your Space Today is published every Tuesday at 6 p.m. For detailed information, disclaimers, scientific references, visit the links below this podcast. This podcast is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult with your healthcare provider regarding any health concerns.